These times are strange, it's quite surreal. It's never been like this. Remembering the good old days when we could hug and kiss. We'd pack the gyms and restaurants and move through public settings. We'd give high fives and drink at dives, hold hands and dance at weddings. Now the days are longer, yet they're darker in a way. We're pressing pause on normalcy, just going day by day. But we can still make jokes and art, garden, dance and sing, cook, read books, try on fun looks and learn about new things. We can talk with friends of ours and have a heart to heart, just so long as we'll stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. It's the newest thing to do. Stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. The distance between me and you, 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. And when I say I'll keep you very close to my heart, it's purely metaphorical. These times are quite historical, so step aside, let's live our lives 6 feet apart.
Welcome, everyone, to 6 Feet Apart Productions. We are so glad that you are here. We're hoping you're 6 feet apart from somebody. Well, okay. We're okay if you snuggle up with somebody, too, as you are here with us today to hear stories. We're so excited that 6 Feet Apart Productions does these amazing story shows that bring us community and also have an opportunity to educate us. We love that tonight the focus is on Black history. And to honor Black History Month. And today, if you have any contributions, those contributions will go to the National Association of Black Storytellers Incorporated, or called NABS, and that will come up in your YouTube, over in the YouTube channel. Oh, that's right. We do. We have actual live people in what we call the backstage, and we have you out there, hopefully many of you live watching us as well, and a wonderful group of storytellers that will be regaling us today. But before we do that, we have the opportunity, and I'm very excited about this, to be able to share a very special video with you. One of the joys of being in this month of Black history is we share things that sometimes people just don't know. And what we're going to do is share a video about what is called the National Negro Hymn, Lift Every Voice and Sing. Usually, we would all stand as this is being done. Today, I invite you to sit, listen, and particularly listen to the words that are being said. Lift every voice and sing.
Civil rights activist James Weldon Johnson wrote Lift Every Voice and Sing as a poem, which was set to music by his brother John Roseman Johnson in 1899. The song is now known as the Black National Anthem in America. It is a protest, a hymn, and a prayer of profound significance for our people. We lift every voice and sing to express ourselves. We lift every voice to show that we have strength in numbers and we will not be silent. We lift every voice and sing to be lifted, liberated, and free.
Freedom, the power to determine action without restraint. Freedom, the absence of or release from ties, obligations, or restrictions. Freedom, the ease or facility of movement or action. Freedom, frankness or boldness in manner or speech. Freedom, a political right. Until we are all free, none of us is free. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our God of our weary ears, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast
That was spectacular. And you couldn't see behind stage, our backstage audience. But with our backstage audience, particularly those of us who grew up with that song being played at so many things that we attended, there was a lot of emotion amongst many of us. And it is proper and right, for it is a beautiful words of a song. So why don't you get a chance to let's introduce our backstage audience and see who's behind here. Now, not certain if we're introducing them individually, but let's see we're just okay. I'm not introducing them individually, just letting you know. You want to shut? There they are. There they are. Oh my gosh, they look so good. They don't look like little bitty boxes to me, though. I just see them each individually. Yes, this is wonderful. Well, they're backstage, and they're going to be our people that we can look at while stories are being told. I am so excited to be able to hear our next storyteller. Wayne Harris is the first time I ever heard Wayne. I was on a program with him, and I will tell you, I laughed heartily. I did. I did. I laughed heartily, and I also thoroughly enjoyed the fact that he was teaching us along the way. And that is the thing I know that he does all the time. Wayne Harris is an award-winning solo performer, a writer, an educator, curriculum innovator, a musician, and a retired man. That just happened. He just got retired. You see, he had been working since 1996 at the Marsh Youth Theater Program. He has been doing solo performances. He has been doing incredible work. He is committed and has been committed to music education, directing, designing performances for schools and pageantry groups. This man who was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, is now getting the opportunity to retire and rest. We know he ain't gonna do that. Just so y'all are clear, that doesn't mean a thing. Just means he's gonna do more storytelling, just like he's going to do for us tonight. Welcome, Wayne Harris.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you so much. And I'm really happy to be here tonight at 6 Feet Apart, the first of many wonderful storytellers tonight. And as Sheila said, I am newly retired, so that's a smile on my face that's hard to get off. But I'll tell you this story that I tell to my fourth graders. It's kind of an important story to lay down the type of stories we're going to tell together. See, I want them to tell stories about their families and communities, and so I share my stories with them. And inevitably they say, Mr. Wayne, is that true? And they think my stories are like legends or myths, because, well, I'm telling them, right? And I try to remind them always that they have stories too. That the stories in their family and in their community and everywhere that they live and work is a story worth telling. So here's the story that I always tell them. This is my daddy. They say that when John Henry was born, that all the animals, they come out to see him. They say that lions and bears, birds and crocodiles come to see this loud, large, laughing baby. There's even some that say that a unicorn come down from the mountain to see what all the fuss was about. At 1 day old, John Henry had eyes as bright as stars and a laugh as large as a dream. They say he jumped off his mama's lap, jumped up on that unicorn, rode it all around the yard, causing a big old commotion. That boy was something. They say he built his mama a front porch when he was but 9 years old. Now everybody's heard about John Henry's hammers. Them 2 20-pound hammers. See, it was his daddy that gave him them hammers. Said you got to have something in your hand to make your way through this world. And it wasn't long after that, old John went out to be a part of that world. And by then, he was a big old strong man child with muscles as large as hope and a smile as big as thunder. And everywhere he went, every day, he tried to do one good thing. One good thing. And his daddy told him, he said, dying ain't important. Everybody does that. What matters is how you do your living. Now, I'll never forget that story because it was told to me by my daddy. Now, that kind of connects to another story I got to share with you today because, well, actually, it's not my story. Actually, it's my big brother John's story. We called him Junior. This is his story because I was 5 years old at the time. Well, see, the story goes like this. One Sunday night, me and my entire family, we're sitting in the living room, watching TV. We're watching Gunsmoke. Yeah, Gunsmoke. Some of you might remember Gunsmoke with Marshall Dillon and Kitty and Festus. I mean, we all loved that show, but no one loved that show more than my brother Junior. He loved Marshall Matt Dillon. And he would sit cross-legged right in front of the TV, and my mama would always have to say, "Boy, move back, move back." The show's going on. And all of a sudden my mama says, Junior, go turn out the light in the bedroom. Well, Junior didn't want to go. "Mama, I don't want to go. Gunsmoke's on." And then 5-year-old me, I jumps up and I says, "Mama, I go turn out the light." And before anybody could stop me, I had run into the bedroom. Now, when I was a little younger than that, 3, 4 years old, I got polio. Made me very sick. It caused one of my legs to be shorter than the other, and they had me wearing these braces, but being a little, 4-year-old, I would run and trip and fall, and I kept breaking my braces. I kept doing this over and over again, and eventually the doctors gave me these very thick black rubber shoes. And they made me wear those. Well, I'd still be running, tripping, and falling, but I could not break those shoes. Anyway, there I am. I'm in the bedroom, right, with the light, and I'm trying to reach the switch. But, I'm short, I'm 5, right? So I can't quite reach. But I'm a smart 5-year-old. So I decide to pull the electric cord out of the socket. I'm pulling and pulling, but it just won't come. So being that smart little 5-year-old, I decide to pull that electric cord with my teeth. My big brother Junior told me that he saw sparks coming out of my ears, and he claims that the shock actually straightened out my bad leg for a second. I cannot confirm nor deny any of it. I don't remember a thing. Not the shock, not the burn around my mouth, not the doctor telling my mother, if not for those shoes, he would not have made it. I don't remember any of that. What I do remember is running and sliding up and down the polished hallways of the hospital. You see, I was the youngest person in the entire hospital. Everybody was spoiling me. The nurses would let me walk all over the place. I would go into other patients' rooms and steal their Jell-O. I was having a great time. And every night, my daddy would bring me chocolate ice cream. Every night. Those nights when my daddy would come to my hospital room, just before visiting hours were over, are the most vivid memories I have of my father even today. Him coming through the door with a pint of chocolate ice cream and 2 spoons. And he would tell me John Henry stories while we ate it directly out of the box. Something my mother would never allow. We would eat chocolate ice cream and he would tell me John Henry stories. Now, I don't remember all of the stories, just this image in my mind's eye of this huge black man with these muscles bursting out of his shirt, hammer swinging over his head. They say that when John Henry died, that he had those 2 20-pound hammers in his hands. You see, John Henry had just raced a machine through a mountain. Now that mountain was as hard as hurt feelings. But John Henry had bet the work crews pay on the fact that a man was better than any machine. And he beat that machine too. Old John had them hammers going in such a whirl. Woo! All you could see was wind and a rainbow. But when he got through to the other side, he just stood there with them hammers in his hand. He looking up at the sun and smiling. And then he fell over dead. I never will forget it. It was like the whole world stopped to take its breath. Everything got real quiet. Birds stopped chirping. The wind stopped rustling the trees. There's folks that say they saw the moon crying, and others swear they saw the sun shed a tear. But everybody that was there will tell you that they heard that rainbow say in a low moan, that rainbow said, dying ain't important. Everybody does that. What matters is how you do your living. The last night that I was there, it was getting real late, and you know how during the day hospitals are so loud and bright and there's so many people moving back, but at night it's so dark and light and sound are coming from unfamiliar places, and it's almost the end of visiting hours, and right at the end, my daddy, he came right through that door. It would be the last time I would see him for quite a few years. Being a railroad man, he ended up out on the West Coast. But I'll never forget that night before he left. My daddy sang to me right there in that hospital room. When John Henry was a little baby, sitting on his daddy's knee, he picked up a hammer and a little bit of steel. He said, this hammer's gonna be the death of me, Lord, Lord. This hammer's gonna be the death of me. John Henry was a steel driving man. He drove steel all over this land. And whenever a train goes a-running by his grave, they say, yonder lies a steel driving man, Lord, Lord. Yonder lies a steel driving man. I never will forget it. Thank you.
Oh, that was wonderful.
Hey.
So good. So good. Oh, my goodness. Woo. Mm-mm-mm. That's some kind of storytelling there, isn't that? Oh, what a great way to begin us on this time together. I love it. Thank you so much, Wayne, for letting us meet your dad. And I just loved getting a chance to meet him, and I could see him just as clear as well. And then to meet John Henry in the midst of that again, it's just beautiful to be able to do that. Thank you, John, and enjoy. Thank you, Wayne, and enjoy your retirement. Yeah, okay, that's good. Well, I was thinking as I was listening to his story, and as I know all the other stories that are coming about this song, Lift Every Voice and Sing. And so I'm going to every now and then bring up parts of that, probably between every story. And this one reminded me of these words: stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with the steady beat, just like John Henry's. Have not our weary feet come to the place where our fathers sides? It's not about the dying, it's about how you're living. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Wayne. Well, now we're going to go to another wonderful storyteller. I had the joy to hear him a couple of weeks ago, to be on a program with them a couple of weeks ago. And I will tell you that in that story, he talked about forgetting somebody's name. But once you hear Devin Sanderford, you won't forget his name, because he tells a story from a very deep place inside of himself, a very vulnerable place inside of himself. He is a published writer and a 3-time New York City Moth Story Slam champion. His stories have been featured in the Washington Post, the Moth Pet Podcast, the Seattle NPR affiliate KNKX, Speak Up Storytelling, and other outlets. He is working on his debut book. We're really excited about that. His books are as good as his storytelling. We're all going to have to go out and buy that. Currently, he lives in, sorry, that was something strange in my house. He currently lives in Brooklyn, New York with his wife and 2 sons. And I hope that you'll find more about Devin at his website, www.devinsanderford.com. And now, with great joy, let's listen and remember the name of Devin Sanderford.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Sheila. Just amazing. And thank you everybody for being here to watch this. I'm so glad to be in community with all of you. It's the summer of 1997. I'm 12 years old and I'm walking through an amusement park in Southern California with 2 of my best friends. I'm really excited. Like, this summer is going to be the best summer. I get a chance to be in this amusement park with my friends. And it's in Southern California, but it's not Disneyland. It's this other theme park, this smaller park that just opened maybe that year or the year earlier. And so I'm really excited to be there with my friends. They're twins that I've known since the 2nd grade. Their names Mark and Michael, though Michael would always get upset if he knew that I said his name second. It would be the type of thing that they would argue about for like an hour, just their names to be first or second. But I'm so excited to be there. We're just there, just the 3 of us, and we're so excited. We've gone, and the very first day that we go there, we try and have like a really fun time, but we find ourselves getting kind of burnt out in the California sun. We get all mixed around. There's too many things to do, and like we're like kind of upset that we wasted so much time doing things that we didn't really want to do. And so the next day we come back and we have a little bit better of a plan. And this theme park it's called Pharaoh's Lost Kingdom, and it's pretty large. It has an arcade inside. It's got go-karts, mini golf. It's got a lazy river that you can sit on with like inner tubes and just go around. They've got these huge water slides and a huge swing. And so the next times that we're going in, we pretty much go there every day that summer. We figure out a way to have a good way to go through the park and we can get the most out of it. And so we decide, instead of starting in the arcade where we had done before, that we would start at the go-karts, because that was like, nobody would be there and we'd get a chance to go around. And so we'd go around, and the people started to know us from being there so many days. They'd let us start going around the track like multiple times, more times than we were allowed. They were so friendly to us. And then we would go to the mini golf. And for us, it was like, what are the craziest shots that we can make? That was what it was about. We didn't really keep track of the score to have the number. And other days we would then go to the lazy river and go and like maybe try and play tag. But we realized that as we were playing tag or going into the water, that would spend so much time to like get dressed in our swimsuits, to have to dry off, to have to change. And so we decided, the water's not really for 3 Black young men. Like, we can just do other things. Like, they had those really huge water slides, and back in the late 90s, and probably still to this day, water slides are like a death trap. Those things were always out of order, constantly, or like they'd be leaking water. The one time I did try it, like, they are so rough that you like feel like your back is getting cut up. I see like, I have dark skin, but I see other, kids with light skin, white kids, they've got like red marks all over their back. And so we're like, well, let's just skip the slides. Like, that doesn't feel right at all. So usually when it would get a little hotter, we would go inside and we'd have our lunch, and we'd plan that out so that we'd be really smart about it. We'd have our lunch, and then we'd have a bunch of time to play arcades. And so every day we'd get to that part and we'd be excited to get to the arcades. And inside where the arcades were, there was this little kiosk where you could like buy candy. And Mark and Michael, they like absolutely loved candy. We're all 12 years old, but like, these guys love candy more than any person I've ever known. They always have candy. Like, in the middle of class, they'll have candy. Like, on the recess yard, they'll have candy. Like, anytime you want candy, they've got it. And so like, every day they would stop at the kiosk to buy candy. And usually I'm just like, I absolutely love candy too, so sure, let's get it. But on this particular day, they stopped to get candy, and I'm thinking like, I tell them like, guys, do you really need to get more candy? Like, we can go do like the laser tags, or we can go do something else. And they're like, Devin, you can never have too much candy. And to be honest, I'm gonna end up having some of the candy that they buy. So it's like, yeah, I'm fine with that. And as I'm standing there watching, waiting for them to pick out their sour straws or their warheads or their fireballs, they're very particular about which candy to get. All out of nowhere, this like 30-something-year-old white man who works at the park walks up to me and he's like, put it back. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I saw you, put it back. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, I saw you take some candy and put it in your pocket, and you better put that candy back. And I'm like, I didn't take any candy. And he's like, well, I saw you put the candy in your pocket, and I have you on video camera taking that candy. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, because I never took any candy, so I don't know how you could possibly have me on video camera with the candy. And he's like, well, you really want to do this? And we're going back and forth, back and forth. And he's like, you really want to do this? I'm going to call the cops. You want me to embarrass you in front of your friends and call the cops on you? And I'm like, I'm not sure this guy knows how embarrassment works, because he's in the middle of this place shouting at me, and now everyone's watching me. I'm already embarrassed. And so I'm like, yeah, you can call the cops if you want to. Like, I didn't take anything. You can call the cops if you want to. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to call the cops. They're just gonna come here, and they're gonna make you empty your pockets in front of your friends, and you're gonna be so embarrassed. And I'm like, I'm not gonna even wait for that. And I just pull out my pockets and show them I don't have anything. And Mark and Michael, seeing this whole thing, jump in, and they're like, oh, maybe it was us you saw. Maybe it was the other Black kids that you saw. And they start pulling their pockets out and starting to make fun of him. And I'm really grateful actually that they're doing that, because I was so scared in that moment to be like having this man tower over me, and to have them come in and have my back and like be like, okay, well, why don't you show us the video? You said you had a video. Maybe we can find out who it is. We should track them down quickly before they get away. And the man, he's like, stumbling over his words, trying to find a way to like, have a like, oh, I just had to like do my job and make sure that like everything was okay. And as I think about that summer and how excited I was to be in that place, it was the first summer that my parents had let me go out without them, to go with my friends, and just for us to be in this Pharaoh's Lost Kingdom as if we have a land of our own. We had the freedom to go around everywhere, and everyone treated us as if, we had the money we would pay until that moment. And so when I thought about that summer and how excited I was, it reminded me, when I was thinking of it, about this past summer, when there was a woman in Central Park telling a Black man that she was going to call the cops on him. And I remember it so distinctly, because I remember his words, and the words he said were the exact words that I said: you can call the cops if you want to. And as I remember people like being so upset about it, as they should be, for somebody to, become a victim and call the cops, I remember people being really appalled. And the way that people were talking about it, it seemed like it was the first time that they had ever learned that this was something. And because he had the video camera, it was finally like, yes, like, oh, I see it now. And I think that really hit me really hard, because it has been since I was 12 years old that I knew things like this had been happening. And as I thought about that moment and the guy in Central Park, it reminded me of how much our nation avoids history. It hadn't been that much long since we had Central Park 5. It hasn't been that long since we had Trayvon Martin, who just had his birthday yesterday. It hasn't been that long since we had all of these cases of people who thought somebody with Black skin was doing something suspicious just because of their skin. And those moments always fall very hard on me. And now, as I'm a father and I think about my parents sending me out to Pharaoh's Lost Kingdom, I think about sending my sons out into the world. And I don't want to send my sons out into a world of Pharaoh's Lost Kingdom only for them to realize that the kingdom doesn't belong to them. Thank you.
Such an incredible story. And that ending, my goodness. Remember that name, Devin Sanderford. I told you, you're not going to forget him. And that ending, Devin, is just so powerful. We have a right to the kingdom as well. And that's an important thing for us to teach our children. And it's just wonderful. It was a great, great story. And we can only pray that by the time your children get to be as old as 12, and that maybe things will be a little different. But we've thought that for a long time. And we still have to. Out from the gloomy past, till one day we stand at last, where the bright white gleam of our bright star is cast, that we can be in a kingdom and we can stand there and know we're okay. And our kids will be okay as well. Thank you so much, Devin. Oof. Are you feeling the depth yet? I hope so, because I want these stories to resonate with you. I want them to sit with you for a while, to walk you through Black History Month, and hopefully a lot longer than just that, so that we can be the agents of change. We can be the agents of action and not just hearing things and sitting with them. Muriel Johnson is a change action person. She has been telling stories for 20 years. I was really appalled by that number. She has been telling stories for 20 years because she must have started when she was 5 years old, because she looks great. She has been in rural communities on the eastern shores of Maryland to the townships of Cape Town, South Africa. She has been with all ages of people and walks of life, and it is her warm presence, her willingness to sit and listen. That is what I noticed when I first met her, which was just yesterday, is that she listens well and deeply, and she puts those things inside of her heart. And I am so looking forward to seeing and hearing this story. She was a California girl. I think probably in her soul she might still be, but she just recently moved to Boston, Massachusetts. I think it's Boston. Springfield, Massachusetts. I got that wrong. So Springfield, Massachusetts. So all y'all Massachusetts people, you got to look Muriel up at www.forherstories.com. And that's FOR, forherstories.com, and bring her into the fold. I'm so glad that we have the opportunity to listen to and hear Muriel Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I have 3 children. I have 2 daughters and a son. And I just recently became a grandma to a little boy, a little grandson. He's 3 months old. And my youngest daughter just had him. And I'm just over the moon. I'm so honored and excited to be a part of his life, especially since my own children didn't have much contact, much interaction with their grandparents due to different circumstances, being too far away and just life circumstance. After my divorce, I became really estranged from their grandfather, my father-in-law. And he was a challenging man, I have to say, to really actually to be around, even though I wanted my children to have a relationship with him. He had a very abrasive personality. Seemed like he just had a rage inside of him and he could snap any minute. He seemed angry all the time. So I tried to keep my distance from him. I have to say that I did experience many years ago some tender times with him. He would sometimes share little pieces of himself. And he would call me into his den and he would tell me different stories about his life, short stories. And I remember he told me that he grew up in the Deep South in Tennessee during Jim Crow. I remember him telling me that he had joined the Army when he was 16. You see, he lied and said he was older just so he could escape the South. 16-year-old boy going into the Army. But my fondest memory of this man, my father-in-law, was that he loved the blues. He would have me go into his den and he had thousands of albums of the blues. And he would show me the album covers and talk to me about the different artists. He was like a musical historian, a musicologist of blues. And he would say, listen to that. Did you hear that? Did you hear what he did there? Y'all don't know nothing about the blues. No. Your generation, you don't even know about the blues. And he would just go on and on and on. Willie Dixon, Sonny Boy Williamson, Muddy Waters. He would just tell me about all the greats. And I really, really enjoyed these exchanges with him because it was the only time that I saw him be happy. He would just exude this joy and something about the blues that just spoke to him in a way that I hadn't seen anything speak to him. And he would smile. He'd have a gleam in his eyes and he would smile so broadly. And I appreciated that. And I learned a lot about the blues. But other than that, you know, I wouldn't say I had much of a connection to him. And it had been over a decade. I haven't even seen him for over a decade. But a couple years ago, in 2019, I was driving to work and I turned on the radio and I heard a booming, deep, velvety black man voice. And I turned it up and it was my father-in-law, my kid's grandfather. And he was playing the blues. He had a radio show and he was playing the blues. And I was like, oh, wow. And he was having a discussion, an interview with a young woman. And she was part of the Black Lives Matter movement. And they were having a discussion and she was talking about going to different schools in the country and meeting with teenagers, with young people. And the young people, she was saying, the Black children, they felt like there was really nothing for them. They didn't see their life as having any longevity. And this woman was so passionate and so upset about the situation in this country. And she was telling my father-in-law, she was saying, you know, what's happening now with the police? It's like modern day lynchings. And when she said that word, he interrupted her. He said, oh, lynchings? Yeah, I know a thing or two about that. Let me tell you a story. So I turned the radio up. And he says, well, I grew up in Tennessee during Jim Crow. I grew up in a small Black towns, Black community, Black everything. But you know what? We took care of each other. We looked out for each other. All the children, if they was doing something wrong, somebody's going to check you and take care of you. Your neighbor, anybody, and they'll go home and tell your parents too. We didn't have a lot, but we had enough. We had everything we needed. Well, you know, I would go to school every day with my friends. All of us would leave together. We would walk a couple miles to go to school. And I remember I was a young boy and one day I was walking to school with my friends. And all of a sudden, the mothers come running out of the houses and grabbing the children. No school today, cheering, come inside. No school today, cheering, come inside. Just gathering them up. So I got rushed into my neighbor's house. I didn't know what was happening, but you know, you don't ask questions when you're a kid. You just do whatever the parents tell you. So I stayed the day at the neighbor's house and played with my friends and she fed us and everything was all right. When I got home, I told my mom what happened. You know, that the neighbor had me stay in her house and my mom said, I know. Well, this happened a few times. Same thing, the mother's frantic, rushing us into the house. Nobody never told me why. But you know what? It happened again when I was a little older. I was almost a teenager. And I found out that the reason that they did this was because somebody had been lynched. There was a Black man hanging from a tree on our way to school. And all those mothers, they was trying to protect us. So we wouldn't have to see somebody that looked just like us hanging from a tree. It's just the way it was. Tennessee in the 40s, it was just the way it was. So as I listened to my father-in-law, my children's grandfather, tell this story, things got really blurry. I realized I was crying. So I pulled over and parked the car. I just had to process this story from this man, the grandfather of my kids, that I felt so indifferent towards. Honestly, I resented him. He always seemed so mad and angry, and I never understood why. And in that moment, I felt so much compassion for him. so much compassion for his story, for him as a man surviving, living in this country. And I just had to give him respect for all my elders, all the things they've been through. I don't know, the different lives and experiences they had to endure. As I was sitting there thinking about the story that I just heard, all of a sudden, another story came in my mind, a memory of an interaction between me and my own son. Well, let me tell you about my son. My son is quiet. He's a young man of high integrity. He's not reactionary at all. He's very loving and has always been respectful to me. Very quiet and thoughtful young man. Well, this was 2012. And I had been following the Trayvon Martin case. And yes, yesterday would have been Trayvon's birthday. Now, this was unusual for me to follow a case like this. I mean, every time I hear about a unarmed Black man or woman being killed by the police, I don't tune in. Honestly, I say a prayer for the family. I say a prayer for myself and my children. And I pray that my children are never a hashtag. I pray that no one ever has to say their name in that context. And then I let it go because it's just too painful. But something about this Trayvon case, I just became obsessed. I listened to anything. I searched social media to read about it. I was constantly trying to follow this case. And I reasoned that, okay, I know cops aren't going to go to jail if they kill one of us. But this wasn't a cop. This was some neighborhood watch guy. And he had even called the police and said there was someone suspicious. And they said, you don't need to follow him. And then he killed him. So I thought, surely this family, they're going to get justice. They have to get justice. They have to. Well, I was cooking that day and I had NPR on and they said it. The man that killed Trayvon, he got set free. He was not convicted. And when I heard that, I turned off the stove and I had to sit down. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I thought I was going to throw up. And I'm sitting there. I just can't even believe it. And my son comes in the house. And at the time, my son was 18. Trayvon Martin was 17. My son comes in the house and he sees me there at the kitchen table crying and he rushes over and he puts his arm around me. He says, Mama, what's wrong? Mom, stop crying. What happened? Mom, what's wrong? So tender. And I say, baby, they let him off. And he says, let who off? I said, the guy that killed Trayvon. They let him get away with it. Not only did they let him off, they completely demonized Trayvon and they try to say things like he had used the sidewalk as a weapon and he was dangerous. Instead of the fact that he was fighting for his life from a stranger with a gun approaching him, my son looked at me. He removed his arm from around me and he stepped back a few feet. And I saw this coldness, like a shadow, fall over my son's face. He looked disgusted. And he says, Mom, save your tears, Mom. What you crying for? You know how this goes. You know how it goes, Mama. They don't give up about us. You must have forgot, Mom. You must have forgot. This is America. This is how it goes. I didn't forget. I don't forget. I'm a Black man in Oakland, California. I don't ever forget. And my son turned his back on me and walked out. So there I was on the side of the road, absorbing all of these emotions and memories and thoughts. And I'm thinking, so I just heard the grandfather of my children tell a story about the culture, the society in the 1940s, and what he understood could happen to him. And here my son is telling this experience in the 2000s. That's about, what, 60, 70 years? That's a long, long time for these generations to be sharing stories that are so similar. I mean, that's a long time. They say that time heals all wounds. But how do you heal a wound when you keep getting assaulted? How do you heal a wound when every day there's a new wound? I just want to know, when is it going to be our time? When is it going to be our time? Thank you.
Muriel. You might have noticed that I couldn't clap on that one. Just have to put my hands together a little bit. Thank my sister for telling the story that needs to be told. That I, as a Black mother, and Diane Ferlotti is going to speak later as a Black mother, as Linda Brown as a Black mother, and I'm not certain where you are with this, Sarah Juba Addison, who's in our room, but many others who have been Black mothers and Black fathers trying to protect our children from what the world that they live in, unfortunately here, from what the world can offer them. So we ask why. I go back to this song. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come and still go, treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, you have brought us thus far on the way. You have led us in the might, with your might, led us into the light. Please keep us forever, we pray, but please tell us when. When is enough? If you're sitting down for a minute and you might just want to take a deep breath. Now I get to introduce Diane Ferlotti. Now, I have so much I could say about her today, but I won't, because she is one of the mamas in my life. Now, she probably wouldn't appreciate the fact that I called her one of my mamas, but she is a mentor. She didn't appreciate it, just so y'all know. She has been my mentor. She has been a guiding light. She is one of those that, had they been in Muriel's grandfather's time, would have took the child inside and said, stay in my house for the day and let's look at some stories. And those stories stay with you forever. Now, I have a whole list of things I'm supposed to say about her that are all proper, which she probably doesn't care if I say all that. But she has grown up with stories on her grandparents' porch in Alexandria, Louisiana. And when she got to Oakland, California, she played the piano in church and she studied American Sign Language. Now that's important, because sometimes you'll watch her hands and she'll be signing to you and you don't even know it. She has been doing this work since 1980. She is a treasure. Her heart is filled with stories. When you gather around her, you learn what story means. She encourages it, she strengthens it, and she knows the power of the story. Today, she's going to give us a historical story to remind us that for a long time, we have been standing up, reaching for freedom. And Diane believes that it is through story that we can continue that reach until we have gotten there. We're going to listen to Diane Ferlat, the Zora Neale Hurston Award winner for the National Association of Black Storytellers, where people can offer their contributions and donations to, the National Storytelling Network Oracle Circle of Excellence Award winner, and a Grammy-nominated woman, Diane Ferlat.
Thank you, Sheila. It's going to be very hard to tell this story after Muriel's story. Now, I knew part of this story, but Muriel, you slapped me. And it was a very touching story. So I'll try to get through mine. African American history is American history. American history is African American history. Because it all happened right here in America. History, don't let it be a mystery. History, don't let it be a mystery. Oh, we got to know where we come from. If we know where we're going, got to know our history to understand this country. History, don't let it be a mystery, no. History shouldn't be a mystery. Ever since the beginning of America, Black people have been struggling and crying for freedom. And many dared to find it too. Those enslaved Africans took off, escaping and running, trying to find it. I mean, many tried. And many died. And were caught and taken back. And if you were going to do that, woo, the journey to freedom was a dangerous journey. And if you were going to try to do something like that, you better have a plan. So let me tell you about a man who had a plan. But we got to go back. Sometimes you got to go back to go forward in the right direction. Let's go back. Over 200 years ago, Henry was born. Henry was born in 1850 into slavery. But Henry was, I guess you could call it blessed, because Henry didn't work out in the fields like all the other slaves back then. As a child, Henry was trained as a house servant. As a little kid, he worked in the house. He did errands for the master and the missus. The master would say, "Henry, bring me my slippers." "Yes, sir." "Henry, Bring me my tea. Yes, ma'am. Well, Henry, he had it a little bit better than working in the fields. Thank goodness. And the master always told all of the people he owned, if you just obey me, someday I'm going to set you free. He tried to make them believe he was God. Just obey. Well, when Henry was about 7 years old, his mama said, Henry, you see that tree out yonder? Same way those leaves are being stripped from that tree. It's the same way with children of slaves. And when Henry was 13 years old, he found out his mama was right. One day, the master called for Henry to come to his bedside. He was very, very sick. And rumors were going around that he might die. And Henry, on the way to the master's room, was thinking, before he died, he probably gonna free us. He said, if we just obey, he gonna set us free. So when Henry got to the master's bedroom, master looked up and said, Henry, come here, boy. Now, Henry, I want you to be always honest, boy, and never tell a lie. You hear me? Yes, sir. Now, Henry, I have given you to my son, William, and you're going to have to obey him now. Yes, sir. And when Henry left the room, he thinking, I thought he was going to free us. I thought he was going to set us free. And when he got back to the house, his mama reminded him, Henry, just like I told you, just like those leaves being stripped from the tree, now they taking you from me. You take care, son. God bless you. I ain't gonna forget you, mama. I ain't gonna forget you, mama. And when Henry was 15 years old, the master died. Now his new master, Master William, was going to take Henry to Richmond, Virginia to work in his tobacco factory. I won't forget your mama. He was taken with 120 other slaves to work in that tobacco factory. 15 to 16 hours a day. There wasn't nothing like working in the house, was it? Things were quite different. He worked there for several years in that tobacco factory. Until one day, he spied a young woman. You know how that is. He looked at her, and she looked at him. And they got a friendship going. But pretty soon that friendship turned into love. And they wanted to get married. But before they married, see, because she belonged to another man, a bank clerk. And so he had to make sure they had permission to do this, to get married. But only under one condition, that they both would have to agree that they wouldn't sell him. But they both agreed for the marriage and to not sell him. But Henry had to pay her master some money to keep his promise to not sell him. Well, Henry and Nancy, they did get married, jumped the broom, and they was married. And they was happy, as happy as slaves could be. Well, after 12 years or so, they had 3 children. I mean, that was a little happy. 3 children. Well, one day when Henry was coming home for lunch from work, one of the slaves came running up. Henry, what's wrong? Nancy and the children been sold to a slave owner in North Carolina. Henry cried, no! And the next thing when they brought him out, he could see Nancy and the children being put on the wagon with other slaves. He called out to Nancy, Nancy! Nancy! And the kids was just screaming, Daddy! 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 And that was the last time Henry saw Nancy and his children. But all day and every day, that's all Henry could think about. Was his family. All he could think about was how to get away, how to escape, to find his family. But you know, if you were going to do something like that, you needed a what? A plan. He was thinking and thinking and praying and praying. And somewhere in the middle of one of those prayers, he got it. He got it. And he talked to one of his members in the church he belonged to, the African Baptist Church, who sang in the choir with him, James Smith, the carpenter. And he told him about a favor he needed. What kind of favor, Henry? I want you to build me a box. I want you to build me a box. And he told him how big he wanted it. 3 feet long, 2 feet wide, 2 feet, 8 inches deep. What you need this box for, Henry? Now you put 3 holes in the box. You put holes. Henry, what you planning on doing with that box? And he finally told James about the whole plan. You gonna do what? Just make me the box. You'll be all right. Well, he agreed to do it. And Sam Smith had a white man he knew. He was named I'm getting those names mixed up. James Smith knew a white man named Sam Smith who had a storekeeper that agreed to help too. And he went to Philadelphia to the Anti-Slavery Society, got an address to where he could nail that box. Came back with the address, he built the box. And the day came, and it was time to get in that box. Come on, Henry. Can you do it? Get on in there. He got in there with just a little pouch of water, a couple of biscuits. Put your head down. You okay, Henry? They nailed that box down, tied it tight with straps. Put it on the back of a wagon. Ha! Get up there. And took that wagon down to the Adams Express office. And on the top of that box, they wrote, "This side up with care." But you know, they didn't take no care. Time that box was thrown on the train, thrown on the boat, was this way and that way. When it was thrown on the boat, he was upside down on his head. Ooh, he was on his head too long, though. When the blood was rushing to his head, he said it felt like his eyes were swelling. And they were going to pop out. The veins on his head were throbbing and his head was hurting. But 2 men came on that boat and wanted to sit down. They saw that box. To make it a little bit more comfortable, they turned the box over to sit down. And when they sat down, Henry thought, thank God. Well, it was taken from the train later, put on another wagon, and finally ended up in Philadelphia, free territory. And there were 4 abolitionists waiting for it. One of them was William Steele, very famous abolitionist. They said, the box is here. Took that box, brought it inside, locked the door. And then they were wondering if everything was all right in that box. Is everything all right within? And they waited for an answer. It's all right, sir. He alive. Opened that box. They cut those straps, took that top off, and there he was. They had to help him up. And when he stood up, the first words he said was, "How do you do, gentlemen?" And he fainted. He was soaking wet. And when he finally come to, he promised if he ever got to freedom, he would sing again. And he sang a hymn, how the Lord done brought him all this way. And Henry, he was so happy with his freedom. He started telling his story, how he done it. Went around giving speeches and inspirational freedom speeches. Some folks didn't want him to tell that story about how he used that box to get away, because other folks might want to try that trick. But the story got out in the newspaper. When the story started getting out, they ended up calling him Henry Box Brown. He told and about his story all over the Northeast. He even went to England giving speeches about his trip to freedom. But you know what? Henry never did find Nancy in the church. But he did find his freedom. Henry Box Brown left that southern town in a box, y'all. In a box. Henry was afraid when they landed on his head. In a box, y'all. In a box. Oh, he heard his neck crack. Pain went down his back. In a box, y'all. In a box. But Henry didn't make a sound, because he didn't want to be found. In a box, y'all. In a box. Henry Box Brown left that southern town in a box, y'all. In a box. He didn't know how it'd be with no place to pee. In a box, y'all. In a box. Henry Box Brown left that southern town in a box, y'all. In a box. Had a biscuit in his hand, bound for the promised land. In a box, y'all. In a box. Henry Box Brown left that southern town in a box, y'all. In a box. That's the story of a man who had a plan. Henry Box Brown. So fast speed. Yay! Thanks for listening.
Yes, yes, yes. Woo! Told that story. Told that story. Wow. What a night of stories. Ooh, my heart is just filled all kinds of up on that. Thank you so much, Diane. You are the sign of a true professional, because even in the deepest moments, you still step into that story and let it pull you. I also want to thank Eric Peterson. Is it Peterson? Did I get that right?
Eric Pearson, come on, let him see you.
Yeah.
Got his mask on. He can't get near me.
Yeah, that's right. No getting near Diane. We love her too much we got to have that 6 feet apart thing going on. And I apologize about calling you Pierre. There we go. There's Eric Pearson, our backup music. Yay! That music is good. Good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Oh gosh, that was so important to have that music to help Diane to be able to even move back into the story. So thank you so much. Wow. So we are so privileged to have the kind of stories that we had tonight. I thought about Diane's story, and it fit perfectly. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song, tell a story full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. And truly, the stories we have told today are stories that talk about the sadness that we have, the fears that have been around, but also the hope, because we're all still alive to tell them, and the fact that we are marching on. We're sharing these stories not to make you just worry that the world is so horrible, but to help you see what the world is and what we can do to change that. That is what I hope. I hope that you also be willing to give just a little bit of any contributions that we have that come in will go to the National Association of Black Storytellers Incorporated, NABS, who also are a group that makes sure the stories get passed on. All stories, African American stories that are part of our American history, and we need to know them. I want to thank you so much. I think I'm pulling everybody in. I want to make sure I talk about two amazing and wonderful people that are in the background here. I think this is the time I do that. She will tell me if I'm doing it wrong. Claire Hennessy and Regina Stoops make 6 foot feet, some feet apart. Okay, so 6 feet apart productions happen. And are we going to show them, or are we going to show? I'm not doing that. We're just clapping for y'all. I don't know. I just said it. I'll be in trouble if I did it wrong.
We'd like to thank our storytellers first.
Oh, we're going to tell the storytellers first. Okay. Well, forget Claire and Regina. Let me go to the other people and we'll get to them. But I do want to bring up these storytellers because they are amazing. And thank you for the tech guru going, I can shut Sheila up by putting somebody else on the screen. That's always a good way to shut Sheila up. And so we say thank you to Wayne Harris and how he introduced us to his daddy and gave us a whole new view of John Henry, and something for me to keep thinking about, the way that we live in. I love that. I gotta keep that in my heart. And a big thank you to Devin Sanderford and that wonderful story. And just a reminder, how, this has been history. It's happened for a long time. Instead of being like, oh, I can't believe it. Let's be like, yes, again, it's true. And it's going to be true for the future unless we change it. And that's what he wants to see. For Muriel Johnson, come on in here, Muriel. Show your face on in here. For taking our hearts, oh my goodness, and just really sharing a story of such depth. And so we need to know that, I just want you to know, it is our absolute prayer that our sons and daughters don't have to live with the knowledge that the world works in injustice. We want our children to live and to have a knowledge that justice exists. That's what we want. Thank you, Muriel, for reminding us we want to see justice. And for Diane Ferlot wrapping us up at the end, as she always do, in her large and loving arms. Okay, she doesn't have large arms, but in her loving arms. And she reminds us of history and tells us that even in the midst of our greatest sadness, when you make a plan and you walk that plan, you can change what happens in your world and in the world of others. And thank you, Eric Pearson, for reminding us how music can bring us to a place where we can tell a story. Eric was really important today. So he helped us get to that point. So we appreciate that. And I'm Sheila Arnold. I probably never did introduce myself at any point in time in the whole show. So if you didn't know who I was just some woman that was talking to you. I'm Sheila Arnold, and I love telling stories. And now I think I can introduce the back people that I introduced already once to you, but I'm going to do it again. Claire Hennessy and Regina Stoops, who made 6 feet apart production happen. And they have just, have you all done this only since the pandemic, correct? You created this
in March, on the 29th, we're having our 1-year anniversary show, because that's when we started our first show. So it's just been an amazing journey. And this has just a fabulous show, and I can't thank you all enough, all the storytellers. And Sheila, you are just the safest pair of hands to MC that I've ever seen. So thank you, and so much heart.
Amen.
And I'm going to just hand you over quickly to my co-producer, Regina, who's going to talk about our next show coming up.
Hi, thank you. And I just want to echo what Claire just said. It was just such an honor to have all of you on the show and to share your stories. This has just been a wonderful part of this journey, has been the ability to put on a show like this. And we're just honored honored to have been able to do it. It's just wonderful, and your stories were so powerful. Our next show is February 20th, and it's actually a stellar story slam. And so the 5 people who have won the story slams from 2020 will be coming in for the Grand Slam champion. The theme is love, all things love. You can't get enough love. So we hope that you will join us on February 20th. And we have shows coming up after that. I'll let Claire touch on that just a little bit. But again, I just want to keep this, the vibe going from tonight. Thank you so much. It was really, really wonderful and powerful, and bless you all for being here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I just want to echo what Regina said. And Sheila, Diane, Devin, Muriel, and Wayne, you've all been amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for watching and coming along, because there's no point telling stories if there's nobody to hear. So thank you everyone in our Zoom audience we're going to show. Thank you everybody on YouTube, and thank you everybody who's going to watch the replay. We really appreciate it. And I say we've got our anniversary show probably coming up on March the 29th, and then we're going to have another show at the beginning of March, probably all to do with songs with stories. So we hope you look at our website, sfapshows.com, for all the details. And we also have a Facebook page, so find us there. Thank you very much. And let's just bring back our backstage audience and all our storytellers and just say goodbye. Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. And
bye, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Woohoo! Great night, everybody.
6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. It's the newest thing to do. Stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. The distance between me and you. 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. And when I say I'll keep you very close to my heart, it's purely metaphorical. These times are quite historical. So step aside, let's live our lives 6 feet apart.